conduct. You should pay attention to that on the website. We do have a Help Wanted board at help-wanted.techlahoma.org if you want to help out Techlahoma directly with some code. I believe that is where you would go. We are also streaming on Twitch, twitch.tv/Techlahoma. If you have Amazon Prime, you can click the little button once a month, and you do have to do it once a month to give Techlahoma some money. We also have this nice little sign up for our license plates now. Techlahoma gets some money every time you get one of those license plates, so you should maybe go do that. And this event center is donated by Starspace 46. You can get a free day pass. Today is Community Day also, so if you hang around, the fine gentleman in the back will give you a tour. And if you need a job, he probably will help you out there too. So that's all of my rigmarole for starting this up. So I'm going to introduce Jacob McSwain with Python Sucks, which is kind of an interesting title for a Python group.
So I just want to preface this with the fact that you should probably watch the whole thing. Don't rage quit about halfway through and leave, because it does get pretty interesting. But this talk is called Python Sucks. A little bit about me. I'm a DevOps engineer at Clever. I am a Python enthusiast, contrary to the name. You can see my site there, McSwain.dev. Managed to grab that pretty early. And you might hate me after this talk. So with that out of the way, let's start talking about how it sucks. So pip, in general. I don't know if I'm sure you've used pip. How do you track dependencies? Do you go in, have a virtual environment, and every time you add a dependency, you do pip freeze? At that point, you get the dependencies of the dependencies in your requirements.txt, or do you go in and manually, every single time you want a new dependency, add it to the file? None of these work. It's awful. We also have pipenv. Why do we need a third-party framework or extension to pip just to get it to work right? Like npm does. You do npm install, it's already in your package JSON. Another big nitpick about that is that package names don't have to match. Look at Pillow, for example. If you do pip install Pillow after the long and arduous build process because it needs so many native libraries, once you finally get it installed, you don't do import Pillow. You have to import pill. And another thing is the descriptions. Look at Beautiful Soup for an example. You're not going to know what Beautiful Soup is just by the name unless you've heard of it or used it before. It's an HTML parser. How are you supposed to know that? It's not soup or beautiful. So another big thing is Python 2, specifically 2.7. It's been, I think, 10 years now? No, going on 11 that it's been out. It's still installed by default on most operating systems. If you want to install Python 3, you've got to do extra steps to get that, even though it's a 11-year-old project. They even went so far as to extend the support 5 years, that people would not move off of it. So like, oh man, guess we got to do it 5 more years now. Another thing is formatting strings. I myself didn't even find out about F strings until, 2 weeks ago. But there's like 3 different ways to format. You can use the %sign to do it as like a printf syntax. You can use curly braces and do string.format. You can use F strings. Why don't we have a standardized way? Importing. Local imports in Python 2 are the worst. Trying to import a local package, it's fine when it's in the same level, but if you want to import like config/config.py, you've got to do some weird syntax, add an init.py. What's up with init.py? Why can't we just specify, hey, I want this out of this file? Why do we have to have this init.py, this like module exports type thing? at the root level of the package that you want to import. This is another thing, package names not matching the pip name. If you install Pillow and have never used it before, how are you going to find out that you need to import PIL instead of Pillow? You'd have to probably go in, check what files are actually installed when you do the pip install. It's the worst. And here's a couple smaller nitpicks that don't really deserve a big slide themselves. Every class method needs a self as the first argument. So if you're making a class, every single method inside that class needs to have self as the first argument. Otherwise, it's not part of the class, or it's static. Why do we have an implicit this or self? Why do we have to explicitly define, hey, we're part of a class? We need a reference to ourselves at that point. Ternary operators, that to me is extremely hard to read. Do X if condition else Y, that you gotta like reverse the language in your head to get it to work right. Whereas other languages just have condition, question mark, true or false. And then the whole idea of Pythonic in general. Like Pythonic being this, we have to do it this way. You have to do it one way. It has to be readable, blah, blah, blah. How full of ourselves are we? Like, this is awful. Like, a lot of other languages are just like, oh, you can do it one way. There's many ways you can do this. No, Python, you have to be Pythonic. Use snake case, all the PEP rules, anywhere. I mean, if you've installed PyLint and use one of the stricter rule sets, it is the most nitpicky thing in the world. And then the big one, the real scary one, JavaScript's better. It just is. It's used more, has so many more packages, and Python's dying, haven't you heard? Like, it's going away. JavaScript's the new thing. They got TypeScript, WebAssembly, it's used on the web. Who needs Python anymore? Seriously. Python sucks is something that idiots say. If you look at it from the outside in, all these things might seem true, but they're not. Python doesn't suck. It's something that an uneducated person on Python would say that. Pip just works. It's the Unix philosophy. Do one thing and do it well. Does it manage your packages? Can you install and uninstall things with it? Yes, it works. If you want extra features, you use something to extend it, just like Unix. Pipenv is amazing, and it's great that we have these options, but we're not forced to use something like that. JavaScript, for example, with NPM, if you want to install a package, test it for a little bit, decide it's not it, you also got to do pip uninstall. That may be your workflow, that may work, but it might not. You have these options, and that's amazing. If you want to track every single change, add in your top-level dependencies manually. If that works for your team, do it. If not, you can use pipenv, and it will do deterministic build or deterministic dependencies and install and track things without you needing to deal with it. Package names not matching helps us reusing code. PIL is this old Python imaging library that doesn't even support 2.7. Pillow came out as a compatibility layer for it. That way you can still use the same functions and everything that you're used to, be able to forward port your code without having to depend on Python that was more than 10 years old. And if you need to find out what a package does, you should probably read more than the name. You're going to want to look at the docs. You're going to want to have to figure out how to use it. Don't just look at something on the names. Python 2.7. How dare they maintain compatibility to help people forward port? It's just the worst. Some OSs now are actually starting to ship Python 3 by default, in contrary to PEP rules that say you shouldn't. But see Arch Linux. You install that and out of the box. Python 3 is right there. It's updated. And then 12 years of support on one language version, that's unheard of. Nothing even comes close that I'm aware of. I mean, there's some LTS versions like Node.js that still have bug fixes and stuff, but Python, one version for 12 years, it's quite amazing. And we only have to deal with it for 9 more months. It's deprecated in 2020. It's going to be gone. We don't have to deal with it anymore. until Python 4, but formatting strings, F strings are amazing. They are the one way to do it now. You can still use the old ones, but you have this one easy way and readable way to do string substitution. And it shows that they listen to the community. They've heard that string.format and then using the percent operator just doesn't work that well and might make unreadable code. And so they listen to the community, they hear these things, and they want to make changes. And for your team, just use whatever's more readable. Whatever works for your team, go with that. You're not locked into these options. Importing. It was hard to find some good ideas for how importing might actually be good. Python 3 made it a lot easier to do local imports. And then importing in general is very language specific. Every language has these idiosyncrasies where you have one way to do things. And the way that we import in Python is just the Python way. You're not going to find one language that suits all. As far as the nitpicks, self and this and the ternary operator is just another idiosyncrasy. Any language is going to have pros and cons. And having the Pythonic view of things is amazing as well. There's one good way to do things. There's readability across all the code. If you go and take one Pythonic module that you wrote and stuff like that and switch to the other, you're still going to be able to read the code. You're going to be able to understand what is going on, you'll be able to read it, and that's awesome. We have one way of doing things. And then this last one is JavaScript. Stop comparing Python to JavaScript. For the most part, they cover completely different areas. You wouldn't use JavaScript for machine learning. You wouldn't use it for these like R-type replacements. But you also wouldn't use Python to do like a React front end. If we're looking at numbers, similar tech.com, which I don't know how verifiable they are, they say that Python has a larger market share than JavaScript in most cases. Whereas on the top, I think it's 100,000, JavaScript does end up going higher, get more market share. And then on w3text.com, it's the W3 consortium that does kind of a study on what the market share looks like looks at what market share looks like. And they say that Python has a higher market share on the back end as well. And I just flew through those slides really fast. That was fast. Is there any grievances anyone else has with Python? Like, is there anything that could be better that you think should be? Thought about mentioning, what was it, PEP 570 or what it was that made the founder of Python leave because the community had such a big backlash on it. It was the assignment operators where you can do colon equals to do returns and sets. You still think that the package imports? So yeah, local importing again, having to set the Python path to be able to say, hey, all my modules are in here, and having to do that in general. I don't have a solution for that. I really don't. It's another idiosyncrasy. It's something that we kind of have to deal with. And then having the file structure isn't well defined out the gate. It's very organic. You determine how you would like to set up your file structure. Relative imports with init.py works as well. That helps ease this pain a little bit.
So the self thing, if you want it to be static, you don't have self. But in every other language, they inverted that. But that doesn't matter because at least you don't have to bind stuff randomly like you do in JavaScript.
So a good point was with the self as an argument in the class methods. In JavaScript, it's better than having it be the opposite, where you define, where you have it static by default, it's backwards. Anyway, it's better than JavaScript, where you have to do, to bind functions to this to be able to get it to work correctly.
The self is about that Pythonic philosophy that explicit is better than implicit.
Yeah, so self is very Pythonic. It's very much about being explicit. And if you come from older languages like C, C++, they will definitely want you to be explicit versus implicit. The whole concept of magic is a fairly modern thing in languages.
Yeah. I mean, look at C#. What is the default accessor for a class, variable, field, property? I mean, I don't know. So I gotta explicitly state it anyway. Python makes it in, so you have to. That almost seems better.
And so yeah, even C# is very implicit like that, or very explicit like that as well. And it seems to.
If you omit it, who knows what it is? Is it protected friend or internal element? I mean, it's kind of a mess. So the implicit thing is easier to read.
Depending on your views, implicit versus explicit really makes a difference. So.